My mother died when I was 15. My father drank. The state put me in 4 foster homes in 1 year, each one worse than the last. I walked out at 17 and didn't look back. 6 months later, I was standing in a stranger's front yard with 3 pieces of stolen chicken in my hand, and this stranger, a woman I'd never met before, changed my life. I was 15 when my mother died, and the world just stopped making sense after that. Not all at once. It wasn't like the movies, where the grief hits and you fall apart and then you rebuild. It was slower than that, quieter. My dad had been drinking for years, but Mom had been the thing holding the walls up. She smiled at the right times. She made the dinners. She translated him to the rest of us and us to him. When she was gone, there was nothing left to translate, nothing left to hold. By the time I was 16, I was in foster care. They called it a system. I learned quickly that the word system is something adults use when they want to feel better about the chaos they've built. The first placement wasn't the worst. Ms. Hargrove kept a clean house and said my name correctly. The first placement wasn't the worst. Ms. Hargrove kept a clean house and said my name correctly. But she had 6 of us, and the walls were thin, and the oldest boy, 17 to my 16, had decided that the house hierarchy worked the way it did in the street. He took things, food off your plate, money from your drawer, the good blanket off your bed. And if you said something, you paid for it later in small, mean ways. I told the caseworker. She filled out a form. 3 weeks later, I was moved. The second family believed in what they called discipline. That word meant chores before sunrise, a list of rules that changed depending on someone's mood, and a particular talent for making you feel like your presence was a burden they were generously tolerating. Not with fists, with sighs, with the way they talked about you in the next room just loud enough for you to hear, with the look that said you were temporary and they knew it and wanted you to know it too. Told another caseworker, another form, another move. The third was a woman who never learned my name, called me the girl, fed me exactly enough to keep me functional, kept the heat off until the neighbors complained in November, left me alone for 4-day stretches without explanation. I was more alone in that house than I had ever been on the street. The fourth, I don't talk about the fourth. I stayed in foster care for a year, exactly 1 year, and then I made a decision. I was 17. Legally, they couldn't drag me back. So I walked out the door one Tuesday morning like I was going to school, and I didn't stop walking. The first few months were something like okay. You know, surviving can almost feel like living if you squint at it hard enough. I got a job at a supermarket on Clement Street, bagging groceries, stocking shelves, cleaning the refrigerator cases on Saturdays. I rented a room in a woman's house, $40 a week, shared bathroom, no guests, no noise after 9. I followed every rule she had. That room was mine, and I was not going to lose it. Then the store cut hours. Then eliminated my position altogether. Then the room was no longer affordable, and the woman needed the space anyway. After that, things stopped being okay. I moved between the teen shelter on Morrison Avenue and whoever would let me sleep on their couch for a few days. There were temp jobs, a week cleaning offices, 3 days sorting donations at a warehouse, enough to pay for a few nights somewhere, a few meals, and then nothing again. Summer was manageable. September was not. September came like something that had been planning to hurt me for a long time. The shelters were full. The temp agency hadn't called in 11 days. The woman whose couch I'd been sleeping on had her sister move in, and there wasn't room for me anymore. I had $4 and some change and a backpack with 2 changes of clothes, and I was standing outside a church on Delancey Street with about 40 other people waiting for the food line to open. I'd been standing there for an hour. More people had lined up behind me. The volunteers inside were moving. I could see them through the glass. Steam trays, foil containers, ladles. The smell coming from inside was the first good smell I'd encountered in days. Something with tomatoes, bread. I was close enough to the front that I was already thinking about what I would ask for, whether I could get seconds without being obvious about it. Then the door opened and a volunteer stepped out. She didn't say it loudly. She barely said it at all. But the information moved through the crowd like cold water. "We've run out. I'm sorry, folks. That's all we have for today." The people at the front absorbed it first, then the ones behind them. Someone behind me said, "Lord have mercy," in a voice that wasn't angry, just exhausted. Someone else peeled off from the line without a word and walked away like they'd been expecting this. I stood there longer than I should have. I didn't know where to go. That's the truest thing I can say about that moment. I had legs and they were moving, and I had no destination for them. I ended up walking east, away from the church, into a neighborhood I half knew, my feet just choosing left and right at corners for no reason I could name. I found out later that the body knows things before the mind does, because I smelled it before I understood what I was walking toward. Charcoal smoke, meat over fire, something sweet in the marinade, maybe brown sugar, maybe something else. My whole body oriented toward it the way a compass needle swings north. My feet slowed without me deciding to slow them. There was a ground-floor apartment on Birch Street with a small front yard and a grill set up near the fence. Nobody standing at it, just smoke and a rack of chicken turning gold in the heat. I looked around. Once. Twice. I walked up the front path, reached out, and grabbed 3 pieces of chicken. "Hey, you better not take my chicken." I turned around. She was maybe 45, maybe 50. Medium height, a kitchen towel in her hand, and an expression on her face that I have spent years trying to find the right words for. It was hardness. Yes, it was the look of a woman who had worked for something and was not going to stand there and watch it disappear. But there was also something underneath it, something that said, "I know exactly what it cost me to make this, and I know exactly what it costs you to steal it, and I am looking at both of those things at the same time." Like she could see the whole equation, not just her side of it. I probably could have outrun her. I was 17 and desperate and fast when I needed to be. I didn't run. I turned back around and looked at her. "Ma'am," I said, "I'm really hungry." Her expression didn't soften. "Not exactly." But it shifted. "I see that," she said, "but you're not going to take my barbecue chicken. I saved my money all week for this. This is my one good thing this week." And something about those words, "my one good thing this week," broke something open in me. I started crying. Not pretty crying. The ugly, bent-over, whole-body kind that you can't stop once it starts. The chicken was still in my hand. I couldn't even put it down. I just stood there in this woman's front yard, falling apart. She watched me for a moment without saying anything. Then, "What's your name?" "Gina." "How old are you, Gina?" 17. She was quiet again. "When did you eat last?" I had to think about it. "Yesterday morning, some crackers from a gas station." She made a sound that wasn't quite a sigh. "Go sit on those steps," she said, nodding toward the front stoop. "Don't go anywhere." She went inside. I sat. I didn't know what else to do. About 4 minutes later, she came back out with a plate, 2 pieces of chicken, a scoop of potato salad, a mound of coleslaw, and handed it to me and sat down in the plastic chair near the railing. "I'm Eleanor," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "You want to tell me what's going on?" I looked at the plate. I looked at her. And then I told her everything. Mom dying, Dad and the bottles, the 4 foster homes in 12 months, the mean boy at the first foster home, the family with the discipline, the woman who called me the girl, the 4th one I still didn't say out loud, running, the supermarket job, the room for $40 a week, losing both, the shelters, the couches, the temp work, the 11 days since the agency had called, the church line an hour ago, and the door opening, and the woman's voice saying, "That's all we have." Eleanor listened to all of it. She didn't interrupt. She didn't make the face people make when they're waiting for you to stop talking. She just listened. And when I ran out of things to say, she was quiet for a moment. "You've been carrying all that by yourself," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." "For a whole year, 14 months. She nodded slowly. "And you have nowhere to go tonight." "No, ma'am." She looked at me for a long moment. I couldn't read it. I was ready for her to say, "I'm sorry, honey," and mean it, and still close the door. People had done that before. Kindness without anything attached to it. "1 week," she said finally. "You can stay with me for 1 week. You hear me? 1. I don't have money to be taking on somebody. I'm scraping by my own self. But I have a roof and I have food, and for 1 week that's yours too. And I'm going to show you some things while you're here. I tried to say thank you. What came out was more crying. Eat your food, she said. I ate every single thing on that plate, the potato salad, the chicken, the coleslaw, which I have hated since I was a child, and still ate every bite of, because I did not know when the next meal was coming, and I was not leaving a single calorie on that plate. Eleanor's apartment was government housing, 2 small rooms, a narrow kitchen, a bathroom with no window, but it was clean in the way that only happens when someone takes cleaning seriously, like it's a form of dignity. Everything had a place. The couch cushions were straight, the dish rack was empty and dry, there were no stacks of anything anywhere. She made up the couch for me that first night, sheet, pillow, thin blanket. It was the best bed I had slept in over a year. Not because of the mattress, the cushions were old and uneven, but because there were 4 walls and a locked door, and someone else on the other side of a wall who was not a threat. I slept for 10 hours. Eleanor was gone when I woke up. Early morning shift at a breakfast restaurant a few blocks over. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter next to a covered plate. Eggs in the fridge, bread on the counter, nothing better be missing when I get back. I ate the eggs. I made the couch back into a couch. I sat at the small table by the window and watched the block outside for 3 hours, doing nothing, just sitting, just being somewhere that wasn't moving. She came back around 1:30 in the afternoon, still in her uniform. The next 4 days were the most organized days of my life. Eleanor moved like she had a schedule that she had been working from for 30 years, which I suspect she had. She mapped it out the first morning. "Here's what we're going to do," she said over instant coffee, both of us at the small table. "Today, food stamps. Tomorrow, rental assistance. Day after that, Medicaid. Last thing, GED program registration. We're doing all of it. I don't need the GED right now. I need a job. We'll get there. Do you want to do this or not?" I did. The food stamp office smelled like bureaucracy. Fluorescent lights, numbered tickets, plastic chairs. Eleanor navigated it like she had been there before, which she had. She talked to the intake worker with the precise combination of patience and firmness that I watched her calibrate in real time. Within an hour, I had an appointment. Within 3 days, I had benefits. The rental assistance office was where being 17 worked in my favor. A caseworker named Mr. Obasi looked at my file, looked at me, and started processing the emergency application on the spot. Because I was a minor without a guardian, there was a protocol. Within 4 days, they had found me a temporary placement in a supported housing program. 1 room, shared kitchen, 8 other young women in similar situations. Medicaid took 45 minutes and a signature. 3 things in 4 days. I had been navigating this city for 14 months and couldn't crack one of them. Eleanor walked in with me and moved through it all like water. On the evening of the 4th day, we sat at the small table again, and she put the paper for the GED program in front of me. I stared at it. "Eleanor, I'm not trying to be ungrateful, but I need income. I need to be working, not sitting in a classroom." "I hear you," she said. "Now you hear me." She folded her hands on the table. I'd learned in 4 days that when Eleanor folded her hands, you stopped talking. "When I was your age," she said, "my mother told me to finish school, begged me. You understand? The woman got on her knees about it." "What happened?" I didn't listen. I was 17 and I thought I knew what life needed from me, and what it needed was money, not a diploma. So I left school, had my first baby at 19, went to work. She paused. "I have been working since I was 19 years old. Every single year. Sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes 3. And I am sitting in a government apartment at 47 years old, and I am fine. I am not complaining. I have my health. But I have never been able to get out." "What do you mean, get out?" "Out of just surviving. The jobs I could get without an education, they kept me alive. They never let me get ahead. I would get a little bit ahead, and then the car would break down or somebody would get sick or they'd cut my hours, and I would go back to 0, over and over for 30 years. She tapped the paper in front of me. You are 17 years old. You have a brain. I've talked to you for 4 days. You are not stupid, Gina. You are the opposite of stupid. I'm not saying... What I am telling you, she said quiet and even, is that there are 2 kinds of surviving. There's surviving year to year, which is what I've done, and there's building something. You can do the second kind, but not without this paper and not without whatever comes after it. I looked at the GED program registration form. I don't know if I can do school right now. My head isn't... Your head will catch up, she said. Sign the paper, Gina. I signed the paper. On the morning of the 7th day, Eleanor handed me a folded piece of paper with 3 phone numbers on it, the rental assistant's office, the Medicaid line, and Mr. Obasi's direct number. You have a place now, she said. You have food and insurance. You have a program starting Monday. Don't waste any of it. Yes, ma'am. And don't come back here looking for a handout. She said it without cruelty. It was just information. I gave you what I could give you. The rest is yours to do. I hugged her. She let me briefly, then stepped back. I walked out with my backpack and a bus pass she'd bought me and the folded piece of paper and something else I couldn't name yet, something that felt, for the first time in 14 months, like forward. The GED program met on Tuesday and Thursday evenings in a church basement on Washington Street. I went expecting to feel out of place. I didn't. I expected to struggle. I mostly didn't. What I found was that math made sense to me in a way that language arts didn't. Numbers were honest. They didn't shift, depending on who was reading them. A correct answer was correct. I liked that. I chased it. My instructor, a retired schoolteacher named Mr. Park, told me after the second session that I should consider accounting. I didn't know what that meant yet. I got my GED in 7 months. After that, there was a youth employment program through the city. Then a part-time bookkeeping job at a dry cleaner whose owner, a sharp-eyed Haitian woman named Mrs. Florstall, noticed that I caught errors the previous person had missed and started giving me more responsibility. She wrote me a recommendation letter that I still have. I applied to community college. Financial aid covered most of it. A work-study position covered the rest. I enrolled as an accounting student. I kept working. I always kept working. Not because I loved it. Some of those jobs were joyless and exhausting, but because I had made a promise to myself standing in that church line on Delancey Street. I was never going to be turned away from food again. I was never going to be standing somewhere with nowhere to go. That promise had costs. It meant I didn't go out much. It meant I had roommates until I was 22. It meant I said no to things other students said yes to. But I kept every single part of the promise. When I graduated from community college, I applied to 4-year universities. One of them, a mid-sized state school about 2 hours from the city, offered me a partial scholarship. A campus foundation made up the difference. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Accounting 4 years later. If I had been able to go full-time, it would only have been 2 years, but I had to keep working. I was 23 years old. I stood in the line to get my diploma with $37 in my checking account and a job offer already signed and starting in 3 weeks. The years after that were not dramatic. That's the thing nobody tells you about the aftermath of survival. It's not a movie montage. It's just work and discipline and choices made quietly, over and over, in the direction of better. I got the accounting job. I was not the most talented person in the office. I was the most consistent. I turned things in on time. I found mistakes other people missed. I stayed late without complaining. I got promoted twice in 4 years. I took on freelance work on the side, small businesses, sole proprietors who needed someone to clean up their books and file their quarterlies. I charged a fair rate and I did excellent work and I saved every dollar of it. Not in a bank account I could casually dip into, but in a separate account I treated like it didn't exist until it did. I got a second job, a better job. I took the CPA exam and passed it. I opened a modest independent practice out of a rented office space on Tuesdays and Thursdays. More than 10 years after Eleanor handed me a plate of chicken and potato salad and coleslaw I hate, I was 30 years old with a practice, a real apartment, and a savings account that looked like safety. Actual safety, not the temporary one broken car away kind, the kind where you can take a breath. I hadn't talked to Eleanor in years, not because I forgot about her. I never forgot about her, but when you are building something from nothing, the phone doesn't ring because there's no room for it. There's just the next class, the next shift, the next dollar, the next step. And I got busy, and she didn't have my new number, and the communication thinned out until it was nothing. I had thought about finding her for years. One day, I decided to stop thinking about it. It took 3 weeks of looking. She'd moved from the apartment on Birch Street, the housing complex had changed management, some tenants had been displaced. I found a forwarding address through a church outreach organization, left a message at a number I wasn't sure still worked. She called me back on a Wednesday morning. "Gina!" Her voice was exactly the same, flat and even and completely itself. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "It's me." A pause. "You doing all right?" "Yes, ma'am. You?" Still here. Still working." That last part hit me somewhere in the chest. Still working. Of course she was. She was in her late 50s now, still in the breakfast restaurant, I learned, or one like it, still scraping, still making it work the same way she had been making it work when I showed up in her front yard like something the city had dropped on her doorstep. I asked if I could come see her. She said she supposed that would be fine. She lived in a newer apartment building now, still small, still government-assisted, still immaculate, same straight cushions, same empty dish rack. A few more photographs on the wall than I remembered. She made coffee. We sat at a table that was smaller than the one I remembered, and she looked at me the way she had always looked at me, like she was taking stock of something. "You look good," she said. "You look like you're not hungry anymore." "I'm not," I said, "thanks to you." "Thanks to you," she corrected. "I gave you a week. You did everything else." "You gave me the right week." She didn't argue with that, just drank her coffee. I had planned what I was going to say. I had rehearsed it in my car on the way over, the exact words, the right order. When the moment came, I put all of it down. "Eleanor," I said, "I want to do something for you." "Gina, I'm not offering charity. I'm not asking you to take something for nothing. You told me once that you wished you'd gone back to school, that the reason you couldn't get ahead was because you never had the chance to build a foundation." She was very still. "I want to give you a year," I said. "I'll pay your rent. I'll cover your utilities and your groceries. You won't have to work for 12 months, and you use that year to go back to school. Community college, GED completion program, certificate program, whatever you want. Whatever would change something for you." The kitchen was quiet. "I'm almost 60 years old," she said finally. "I know. I don't even know what I'd study." "Then you spend the first part of the year figuring that out." She looked at her coffee cup. "That's a lot of money." "Yes," I said. "It is. And I have it. Because of a week you gave me when you didn't have anything to spare." Eleanor was quiet for a long time. I didn't try to fill the silence. I'd learned that from her. "I'd feel like a charity case," she said. "You'd feel like someone whose investment finally came back to her," I said. She looked at me. The same look. Taking stock. "You're not going to let this go," she said. "No, ma'am." Another long pause. Then, so quietly, I almost missed it. "Okay." I drove home that evening with the windows down. I've thought a lot about what made Eleanor different from the church volunteers, the caseworkers, the people who handed me forms and moved on. And I think it comes down to this. She didn't give me a resource. She gave me a week. She gave me herself, her time, her small apartment, her table. People talk about hard work like it happens in isolation, like someone decided to be disciplined one morning and the world opened up for them. That's not how it happened for me. What happened for me was that one woman on one ordinary Saturday afternoon looked at a girl crying in her front yard and decided that she had enough to share. Not much. Enough. I got my GED. I got my degree. I built my practice. Those were mine. Eleanor's right about that. But the reason I could do any of it, the reason I signed that form at the table on the 5th day instead of walking out, is that someone first had to show me what caring about a person's future looked like up close. I made something of my life. That's mine to carry. But Eleanor made it possible for me to have a life to make something of. That belongs to her. And now she gets her year. I think for the first time in a long time, we're even. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe.